enjoying your background.
Oh, thank you. Last time I ran out of time, so I'm gonna get started and
I keep doing that too. It's pretty hard to keep to 20 minutes. I'm like, ah.
yeah. Um, but before we begin, there's a energy clearing exercise we do in biogeometry before we do any type of measurements. And you stand up and then you put your hands up like this figurine, and you make the sound who, like WHOOOOO, and you do 3 chants of who. If you want to get up and do it or not, fine, just to clear the energy from the last session.
Who? Sounds cool together.
Yeah, I went down to North Carolina to graze cattle for a month, and the farmers were doing that exact same thing to
Oh.
the cattle to come to the next paddock. They're like, "Ooh." And I was like, "Whoa, that's amazing!" So it activates your, 10th chakra, and then that clears all your chakras. So on that note, we will blast off biogeometry. So it was founded in 1970 by Dr. Ibrahim Karim, who's an Egyptian architect. And he calls it nature's own design language of using shape and color and sound and proportion to help bring healing energy into your spaces or in your body. And so biogeometry tools are able to detect and manifest and direct these subtle energies, which can benefit us. So if you break down the word, bio means life, geo means earth, and metry means measure. And so we're measuring the life force energy of the earth and all the living systems within the earth, and then amplifying that life force energy. And so with our 5 senses, we can only perceive 1% of reality, but biogeometry allows us to connect to that 99% of unperceived reality in these other dimensions, which helps us to align with our higher self. This is the newest book, The Hidden Reality, Biogeometry, Physics, Equality. I would not start with this one, it's pretty dense. But in a couple slides, I'll show you the first book if you wanted to jump in. And so really it's a shift in human consciousness that we're going through. And biogeometry is helping us bridge the left brain and right brain to have balance. And so if you go back to primitive man, when we were cavemen, we were using, all the right brain, no left brain. And so we were completely in tune with nature. And then if you look at ancient man, like ancient Egypt, we started to bring in that left hemisphere, this left-right balance. And that's when we built pyramids, the mystery schools, blasted off a lot of amazing inventions. And then in Greece, we started getting more into this ego and left brain and out of the right brain. And that brings us to today where we've, just the ego's taken control, and there's a lot of greed and power that got us to this point of the 6 mass extinction on planet Earth. However, contemporary man, we are starting to bring back in the right brain perception, and biogeometry is a huge tool to help us bridge that gap and really usher in the golden age. And so this is the book I was talking about, his first book. I read about 3.5 years ago that set me on this gorgeous journey. And it gives you a nice intro to everything. But really, all of it's built upon the French research in the 1930s called vibrational radiesthesia. And so there was 2 scientists that were doing a lot of work on this, Leon Chomry and Dave Balizow. And in 1957, Leon Chomry died, and all this research got pushed to the side. and everybody kept doing mental dowsing, which is a psychic phenomenon. And so it's similar to muscle testing where you're using a pendulum, but you're asking yes or no questions, and you have the mind that comes into play. However, vibrational rate anesthesia, you go into a meditative state, no mind chatter at all, and you're allowing the natural energy fields to resonate. And so it's less of a psychic phenomenon and more of a sacred science, biogeometry, aka vibrational rate anesthesia. And so that's one of the big things I always let people know right away. Just do not get it confused with the mental dowsing that a lot of people do with their pendulums. Although it looks similar, it's a totally different thing. And so the French discovered this negative green carrier wave that was emitted below pyramids and also a hemisphere. It's a real powerful energy, and it can actually penetrate lead. It's so powerful, which can't be penetrated by X-rays. And so the ancient Egyptians took advantage of this, and they made this Waj pendulum where on the top they have the hemisphere, but they added a little bit, extra on top to nullify this detrimental energy, because there's two types of negative green energy that's coming out of this. And so if it goes to the next slide, there we go. There's vertical negative green that is being emitted, and also horizontal negative green. So vertical negative green is detrimental to our health, and all electronics are emitting it: Wi-Fi, cell phones, processed foods, synthetic dyes. Even when we lie or have judgmental thoughts, we create this vertical negative green. But then there's horizontal negative green that's beneficial to humanity. If you look at like sacred power spots or different spiritual practices when you're praying, they're just telling the truth and being present and observing without judgment is going to create this healing energy. And so our body's electricity has this horizontal negative green energy, but man-made electricity has this vertical negative green that's detrimental to our health. And so the ancient Egyptians knew this, and so they made an indention of 1.76 degrees down the center of the face, if you look at that top picture. And so what that did, this little indention, nullified that vertical negative green, this detrimental energy, and kept all of the beneficial energy. And so you look at some modern day temples on the bottom picture. On the right, it's corrected. On the top, they have an extra cross and hemisphere that nullifies that vertical negative green. But then some, buildings, they have not corrected it. They don't realize this. And so it's sending this detrimental energy down. And so one of the things we see in this new age sacred geometry phenomenon is people putting pyramids over their beds. And I've also had people, put pyramids on their heads. And if it's not corrected, it's not only giving beneficial energy, but it's also giving detrimental energy coming straight down through that shape. So that's one of the things I wanted to let people know right away, because I see that a lot and it just really hurts my heart. But the huge discovery that Dr. Crean made was this BG3 energy. And so the French discovered the universal color spectrum. If you look on the right here, these are 12 different subtle energy qualities. These are polarized energies that they named with colors: ultraviolet, violet, indigo. But Dr. Cream asked, what about that non-polarized energy in the middle? And so he was able to discover that and detect it. And this is the universal force which balances all living energy systems. And so he termed it BG3 because it has three energies simultaneously present: the higher harmonic of gold, the higher harmonic of ultraviolet, and the horizontal negative green. And so anytime we're praying, we're sending gratitude, we're creating this BG3 energy inside of us. And this golden pendulum on the bottom, a little to the right, is one of the pendulums I use to measure the BG3 energy. One of the coolest experiments we did in our training was taking a house plant and sitting down and just witnessing the beauty, not judging the house plant at all, just the vibrant colors and looking all over the soil and the shape. And we measured before and after how much BG3 energy this plant has. And just by sitting down and witnessing the beauty with no judgment, it brought all of this healing energy into this plant. And so I just did a presentation workshop a few months ago at We Are the Medicine Festival up here in Minnesota. And I did that same experiment with 2 people to show that it also works on people. And so you can see why having a best friend to talk to about something that's really present and non-judgmental, or a therapist that's really good, it can really heal us a lot just to be witnessed and somebody to be present. It's gorgeous. And so there's so much technical skills that I learned, but I didn't really foresee the deep spiritual learning that I've had the last 3 years in biogeometry. This picture is showing the different planes of nature. That's basically different dimensions that biogeometry is able to tap into. And so with our 5 senses, we only see the physical dimension. And just like on a keyboard, when you play one note, the higher octaves of that note, start to vibrate. The same thing happens on these other dimensions or planes of nature. And so when we have, a cell phone that we're talking on for an hour, causing all this negative energy, this detrimental energy, it can start to affect us on the emotional level and spiritual level and everything else. And so we're an open energy system. It's constantly absorbing energies from whatever environment we are in. And biogeometry is all about changing that vibration so we are fed by those qualities instead of being drained by them. And the way you do that is adding different types of shapes. And so, like, I'm wearing some jewelry that helps protect me. But there's also these types of shapes like this L90 that has like a sticker, and you can put all over different electronics and windows and your Wi-Fi. So your Wi-Fi is sending out healing energy instead of detrimental energy. And you can totally transform spaces. That I think I want to stop there, see if there's any questions, because I know I'm getting close on time, and then we'll proceed from there.
Where would you get stickers to put on Wi-Fi in your house, or phones, or anything that's emitting all of these yucky kind of vibrational frequencies to shift to positive?
Yeah, so there's some public biogeometry tools that are available on biogeometry.ca, and you'll go on there and there'll be an official retailers list, and there's about 10 in North America, and a lot of times some are sold out and you have to check multiple ones. But there's a lot of tools available to the public that you can buy directly to biogeometry. And then if you want to go deeper, with somebody that's, done the training like me, I am able to transmute like negative earth grid lines. So I've done over 30 homes the last couple of years, and 100% of these homes have had at least one negative earth grid line going through the bed, disturbing people's sleep. And I put some shapes down on the wall right in the center. It transmutes it, turns it into a mini sacred power spot. And then they're getting deep sleep again in this, they're healed. And so there's a lot more that you can do if you find a practitioner. But yeah, there's also plenty, like a lot of this jewelry, this is all available to the public as well.
That's wild. So do you actually, physically go to these people's houses and basically grid their houses for positive energy based on what you're putting where. You're not doing this remotely, it's all physically present.
Yeah, for the home balancing, yeah, I have to be
Yeah.
there to measure. I do remote personal balancings for people and for pets and animals, and so that's a little bit different. I can measure the personal wavelength. Everybody has a personal energy signature, and then I can test an anatomy map and find out which parts, which organs and glands are unbalanced. And then I can apply these biosignatures. He calls them, it's the exact energy patterns of those organs. And that brings it back into harmony. And then there's also some more advanced tools I can use to get into the subconscious from all sorts of different, like, cultural programming and parents and movies and trauma and everything else. So that's really beautiful. So I put this flyer up here that gives like a good overview of all the different things that I can offer, and I can send this to you as well. But that's a great question. Thank you.
It's
Yeah.
wild.
Thank you so much, Ryan. This is like fascinating. I can tell you like just barely scratched the surface of all this. There's so much to dig into. I'm like intrigued. Yeah, I'd love to learn more. And I think your offerings are really cool. So definitely share the flyer. You said, was it the rod, that golden rod that measures essentially the energy? Where do you get that? Is that something that's really limited, or like hard to get? I don't know. Where do you get something like that?
Yeah, so I think there's a limited amount of the pendulums that might be available to the public. But it took about 15 hours of practice with the pendulum to start to get confident with the measurements. It was definitely a skill that I had to build up, and I've seen other
Yeah.
people drop out of the training because they have a lot of stuff
Wow.
just blocks. It seems like it brings a lot of stuff, and it's really a spiritual journey to do the training. But I did my training through
Wow.
the Vesica Institute with Dr. Gilbert, and yeah, that was a really deep teaching there.
Wow. That is fascinating. I had no idea that like what was required to use that. So thank you for sharing.
Yeah. And one of the coolest studies, there's a lot of studies, but this one in Hamburg, Switzerland, they put up a cell tower, and the entire town was getting sick. People were getting headaches, and the
Mm.
cows were getting sick as well. And they tried everything, and they're like, all right, we'll try Dr. Cream with the shapes. And he came in, installed all the shapes. And, just within days, people started getting better, and even the cows got better. So they knew it wasn't a placebo effect. And it was such an effective study that they replicated the entire study at Hirschberg, Switzerland, another town in Switzerland. And so this
Mm.
tool on the top right is called the Hamburg emitter. They named it after this study. And I've used this a few times now, and you can point it at a cell tower, and it shoots like an invisible energy laser at the cell tower. It transmutes all of the detrimental energy and then sends out BG3 healing energy all around a radius of that tower. And so if we had enough people to train in this and enough money, we could have these, all over the entire earth and just form this healing energy all across the globe, which is a beautiful vision. But ultimately, the vision is to redesign all of our buildings and construction. Being an architect, Dr. Kareem foresees us, totally revamping our construction, because the 90-degree angles in our houses are just not very good for the energy flow. And so if you have trash or dirt or anything like in a 90-degree angle, it's actually going to be there's a carrier wave that gets created. It's going to push all that negative energy in the center of the room. So one cool thing you can do is put a house plant in your corners, any 90-degree angle, and then it'll send this positive energy in the center of the room. Or if you have like vines going up in the corners of your,
Mm.
ceiling, and that's going to bring a lot of good energy into the room. But there's also different tools that you can add as well.
Thanks.
I love this, Ryan. You know, I've been a pendant wearer for a good couple of years now. And it's just one of those things I'm like, I really just don't like to be without it. Like there's just, I couldn't tell you that it like, but I always feel better wearing it. And it's the pendants are yours. Like you're not supposed to share them. You're supposed to clear the energy from them on a regular basis. It's fascinating. And I want to learn even more from you because I keep going like, oh, we could use it here. Oh, we could use it here. And I have it like, I have the stickers all over my house, like on the windows and this, that, and the other, and on my Wi-Fi router. And the stickers are super reasonably priced. And there's even more of like, okay, when you're doing marketing and things like that, some of like you saw Ryan had in the top corners.
Yeah.
Like those start to, Ryan, you can explain this better than I can, but like harmonize what you're presenting. And so like,
Yeah, it helps mitigate the electromagnetic radiation, just those you see in the top right and the top left there. So that's why he put those on some of these slides, and I do too. So you could put those into. I actually did it for my yoga class tomorrow. I put it up in the top left and top right, and they've had studies showing there's like an increased amount of people buying those products or looking at those advertisements just by adding those. You mentioned the pendant, so I want to talk about this study because that was pretty fascinating with the hepatitis C research project, where they used that pendulum BioGeometry medallion that we have here, and they showed an astonishing 90% normalization of the enzyme levels, much higher than anything else, all the pharmaceuticals. They also had like alternative therapies, that they used and everything else. And there was actually a large number that showed complete viral clearance. They just cured the hepatitis C altogether. And so, I don't know, I've been wearing it for 3.5 years and I haven't had like one severe sickness in 3.5 years. I get like small colds and then I am like very quickly recover. It's absolutely amazing. So any more questions? I think we're about on time here.
so many more questions.
Yes,
And
7 minutes.